a lot to all of you. So I'm going to quickly do a short introduction. Please add whatever extra you want as, uh, present students to know.
Sure.
So I'll start with you, Irina. She is a VHU IT graduate and of course from XLRI 1996 or 7?
7.
1997, and she's now the executive director of the cloud solution. She's been with Microsoft for 2 decades and very dynamic, interested a lot in diversity and health, and works a lot with the non-profit as well, and a great support to our alumni team in Bangalore in conducting programs for interns, for women's issues, everything, So welcome, Irina. I'm going to go on to Chris next. Chris is from the
2005.
The GP. No, I'm getting the word GPM. The GPM batch of 2005, and he's now with Microsoft as head of campus recruitment, and he's been with 6 companies before that. But more than that, he's also been doing an excellent job, except for the last 2 years, and he's kind of stepped back as the treasurer of the Bangalore alumni committee. And that's an amazingly difficult job, let me tell you, because we have no full-time people and we just chuck, vouchers and bills at him. And he has done an amazing job of that. And for this program also, he's done a survey. Like I said, he's done a mini internship in this session. And he has 1 wife, 1 kid, and 1 guitar. But his affinity to that is not necessarily in that order. So,
that's why I have my headphones on also, so my wife doesn't.
And then we have the youngster.
Hi, everyone.
You can say that she had. Hi, Akshay. Akshay is from the batch of 2017. And he works in IT. 18? See, I remember meeting you also. I thought that was 3 years ago. So yeah, 2018. And he's working with ITC. He got a PPO from ITC, and he is also a veteran of our learning events. He has participated in the face-to-face events also. So welcome, Akshay. And the agenda today is, I'm going to start with Chris, asking him to share the survey that he has done.
Sure.
And then go on to Akshay and Irina.
Okay.
And so that, I want Akshay to share his experience of internship, and maybe if he has seen other interns in sales, etc. Because in ITC, I'm sure you're interacting with the sales team quite closely, especially in your present role. So I would like you to share that, and of course, a leadership view from Irina. And so we'll start with Chris. And Chris, I need to do something. I'll share the screen for his
Sure.
PPT. Okay.
Thank you.
There you go.
All right.
Yeah,
so this session is not intended to be PPT driven. It's more to serve as a visual backdrop to some of the things that interestingly came up in discussions with the campus heads and business heads that I've been able to speak to across the last 1 week once I got to know about this topic. So it's just there as a visual backdrop. And since most of us assimilate information a little better when you can see what you're talking about, so I just thought we'll throw it there. Okay. So if I could just go on to the first screen, Gayatri.
Yeah,
I wanted to maybe shock you a little bit. I wanted to maybe throw some controversy in a little bit. But here's some of the stark realities which you should know. And if XLRI is like any of the
let me share it from beginning, because I'm struggling with this.
No worries. So some of the stark realities which you need to be aware. And if you look at Excel, it's just like any of the other premier B schools. 80% of you are most likely freshers, and hence you need to be having that disclaimer slide which comes out first, telling you what to expect rather than just the rosy picture, which also could be there. So some of those stark realities, and if you want, Gayatri, what I can do is probably start speaking about it from my...
Yes, because I should know this better by now, but I am struggling. Sorry.
No problem. So anyway, I have it on my office laptop. So let me just get started with that. So the first thing that you probably need to know is that...
Is this okay?
It's coming on? Yeah.
The stark reality.
Yeah, the stark reality, right? So internships, as you may have heard, are mechanisms by which companies identify early talent. They brand their businesses or their companies with that, and that's predominantly how so many companies come to Excel to hire. But what you need to understand is that internships are primarily driven by HR. It's an HR agenda, and businesses end up having to take in those people, and then you do the internship. So the ownership necessarily is not there with businesses. And I'm not speaking about my company or maybe Irina's company, but in general, when you see internships, and I've seen this from both points of view, one as a mentor and one as a hiring manager as well. Since it's not owned by businesses, and businesses are not the ones coming forward and saying, look, I need these people to come in for internships. I want to identify talent early. I want to be able to pick the best. What you do see and ending up happening is that businesses aren't ready for you when you come in. Maybe some do a better job, maybe some not so good a job. But I would presume that to the most part, they know that you're coming. But when you do land up, you're going to find some stark realities, which is I'm the mentor who is there, and you've landed up on Monday, and I've got lots of work which is happening, which is primarily important to me, and I can't spend time with you. So I will tell you that, I'm really sorry, but there's severe workload and pressures that I have. And so you'll have to excuse me maybe till Wednesday, and then I'll catch you back on Wednesday. All right. So when Wednesday comes, now I'm under pressure because I've committed to you that I'm going to spend time with you. And the next thing that I probably will end up doing is having a team member spend time with you across the next couple of days. So your first week has already gone where you've not had anything productive happening. I'm not saying this is the case for all companies, but it is something that you'll have to grapple with. And if you've spoken to your seniors, maybe you've heard of such stories as well. The second thing that you need to know is that even if you are not there in the picture, life goes on for the businesses, right? So your internship is important to you, and it's not that necessarily important to the business unless, of course, they actively look at it as a source through which they can identify talent early. So it's important to you. So keep that in mind always. Right? Of course, your interests are not going to match with the company in terms of the culture or alignment. And that's something that you'll have to come to terms with if you want to get an internship in that company, if you want to do that. And we'll speak a little more about this, maybe a little later. Right? And of course, you are the best of the best. Lakhs of people have applied to Excel, and you are the few hundred who managed to get in and are have the privilege of doing that. So obviously you have a sense of entitlement, maybe that, I'm the best, so I need to get the best, but that may not necessarily happen. So just be prepared for that. And of course, when statistics speak for themselves, all the pre-placement, the internships which happen, less than half of them actually convert into placements. I'm sure that's the story in Excel. I'm sure that's what I've been seeing wherever else it is, right? So this was the disclaimer slide to have you come to ground reality of what to expect. But that's not the be all and end all, right? So there is, of course, a silver lining. And if Gayatri, you can help me move to the next slide, let's look at what that silver lining is like. Yeah. So the good news is that you can actually make a difference, even though the world is conspired against you and the systems and the processes which are there are not necessarily looking for you or ready for you. You can obviously make a difference, and it's all down to how you approach it and how you network and how you're able to engage. And we'll speak a little more, I'm sure, in the panel discussion which is happening. You will come to see some of those things, and of course we will cover some of those tips and hacks that you can do to make sure that you have a great learning experience and possibly even work towards bagging that pre-placement offer. So when we started the session, we were having some chatter which was happening for those of you who are part of that at 4:55 to 5 p.m. today. And one of the things that I was chatting with fellow campus heads on our WhatsApp group that we have is what's the state of internships? How is it going to happen? And of course, the good news is that this year internships are happening in full swing. It's all happening virtually, and companies aren't looking necessarily at reducing the duration, reducing your stipend. They're in fact even looking at contingencies of what happens if you get COVID during this period. How do we compensate for that? What are the kinds of things that we can do to make sure that the person doesn't lose out? Can we give them preference for PPIs if that's the case? And how do we deal with stipends and payouts and things like that? So it's happening and it's positive. This wasn't the scene 1 year ago. Nobody knew what to do, and everyone was just trying to bury this under a rug, and that's not the scene this year. And of course, colleges, B schools like Excel have the pedigree, have the strength to be able to pull in recruiters, which is why within maybe the first 3 days or 4 days, all placements are done. Okay. So definitely, I don't think you have much to worry if your PPO doesn't happen as well. But at the same time, there's so much that you can showcase from what you've learned from your PPO, and we'll probably cover some of those aspects. And how do you showcase and how do you do some of these things? So with that as the preface and the starting note, probably let's just get into looking quickly. There's a lot of information, and I never do this on any of my presentations, but I thought we'll just dump all of this information that the different campus heads and business heads happen to take time out and write so that you can just see it. Gayatri, of course, will send it across to the Alcom, and you'll have access to this presentation later. So I'm just going to probably cover some of the salient points on each of those slides where we had asked these heads to give their views and their inputs. So let's get into that. Yeah. So the first question which we asked is, what are some of the positives that you find in interns when they come in? And if you Google, I don't think you'll find something very different from what's coming out here. The fact that quick learners able to assimilate and understand and use market intelligence, research, and all of those good things which we look for in business analysts, or we look for in management graduates who come in, or things like that. So that's some of it. I'm not going to read each and every slide, but of course this will come to you later. Have a look at it. The next slide, Gayatri, please. Okay, so this was something that we tried to analyze. What are the behavioral traits that folks who are in decision-making positions look for? And I'm sure Irina will cover a little more on that in detail. And I'll give you a moment to soak in what's there on screen. But I think something that stands out here is somebody who takes initiative and goes that extra mile to make sure that you understand what the business is about that you're getting into, what is it that you can add as value, and how can you come with possible areas that you can work on. Those are the people which really wow any of those decision makers. And if I have to just look at personal experience of having interns come into my team in the various companies or in the various roles that I've played, the ones who we convert into PPOs are the ones who we are delighted by. And what do I mean by that? The first interaction itself is not something where the person comes in and says, okay, what do I do now? Or can you tell me what my project is going to be? Of course, we may have something that we want them to work on. But what would actually delight me to see is if somebody comes in where they have a complete understanding of not just my company, but my business unit and the kind of work that we do. They've researched in terms of what are the kinds of aspects that are taken care of by the team. What are some of the maybe the pain points which are there, right? So, and then when you explain that to me, it's like music to my ears, because I already know that you've invested significant amount of time in doing this research and in time. So you've already set yourself up for success with me in terms of perceptions, right? So that's what you probably need to kind of look at. We'll speak a little more maybe in detail about this, but come with an approach rather than waiting to be told what to do. I think that's the number one trait which came out while speaking to all of these leaders. And of course, being able to apply whatever you've learned or using your past experience, if you do have work experience, to be able to bring some meaningful insights or inputs to the business.
Yeah,
okay.
Chris, I just wanted to add one thing here.
Sure.
So they did say that the a person I talked to, and from what I can see from your survey, they did say there's a difference between those who come with work experience and those who don't come with work experience. So then the question arises that if I don't have work experience, what do I do? Yeah. And one thing suggested is possibly live projects. Yeah. You know, like for example, if you can go to the SME sector and check what is happening there, even though it's not in your curriculum, if you can go out of your way to gather some knowledge, be curious, that helps a lot in learning about the company.
Absolutely. And there are so many ways that you can do that. Yeah, thanks, Gayatri. That's a very interesting point. And it's also one of the slides. I think the next slide is on that. But let's just spend maybe 30 seconds to dwell on this, right? You have a myriad of things that you can do to kind of pick up and understand the business problems or the domain which is there, right? So whether it's speaking to seniors, whether it is connecting with people on LinkedIn from that company, trying to understand. You have so many things that you can actually do to get prepared and to get information which could be relevant. But yes, I mean, that's one of the things which came out in the survey as well. I think that's the next slide, which is that there is definitely a difference. But the good news is that 80% of folks who come into internships are freshers. So you're all in the majority vote. So, it's going to help the fact that all of you are on the level playing field when it comes to that. And yeah, so the next slide, Gayatri, I think that one speaks a little more about this. Yeah, so right. There is a clear difference. Some of those folks may have a little more ease in working with larger teams. There seems to be some sort of a hit the ground running kind of approach, which folks with experience could do. But if you don't have experience, it's not the end of the world. You, of course, it's just that maybe easing into teams or working with people or trying to understand, maybe that takes a little more. But I'm sure in projects that you worked with each other in college or in engineering or whatever else that you've done before, you had those opportunities to work. It's just that it's going to be slightly different.
Yeah. So Chris, I was told that the split is almost 60% with work experience and 40 without right now. Okay. Which is a trend which is different from my year.
Yeah, absolutely. Is the trend still engineers constitute 80, 90, 95%?
I would think so. I haven't checked, but most of the profiles I see do have an engineering background. Yeah, for sure.
So there is some homogeneity when it comes to that, but you are the best of the best, and the kind of education that you get is on par with everything else which is out there. So I think that helps also for you to be able to get grounded. And of course, there's so much support which comes in, whether it's your seniors or your professors, and getting some insight before you jump in. So that's going to help you. Yeah. So let's cycle through quickly on the remaining slides, Gayatri. Yeah. So this was another angle which you looked at. And if you look at all of the slides, I think it's the same information which is being looked at in different dimensions, as to, on one side, who are your success profiles, on the other side, who are those who don't necessarily succeed when it comes to PPOs, right? So it's the other side of the coin. And whatever we spoke about proactiveness, if you don't come with that, if you come with the mindset that, I've come in and they're going to take care of me, that's not something which will help you. And definitely recruiters look for people who come equipped with the other side, right? So strong background of the basics required about the company, about the BUs, should be able to socialize. And I don't mean, that in any other sense, but the fact that can you start figuring out with people who are working in the business unit, try and find out what is the kind of work that they do. Don't just go with an empty slate saying, tell me everything, because that can put people off as well. We've all got a lot of work, but if you come to me already and say, look, I know all of this about your business unit and this is the kind of stuff that you do, can you help correct some of this understanding for me? I think that's when people actually take interest, because when they see that you put in that much work, you will find it being reciprocated. But if you go with open slate saying, I'm from so-and-so batch and so-and-so year of so-and-so college, and I'm going to be doing my internship here, and can you tell me about what you do? Most people will find that a little uncomfortable. So try and figure out some stuff before you get in there. So that's what I think came out as far as this survey is concerned. Of course, the kind of projects which come in, and you have to understand this, right? You're not going to get the mission critical or the business critical kind of projects to work on. You may get some exposure towards the end, but you are going to necessarily be on the periphery of that. You're going to get an exposure to the kind of stuff that that could be there. So don't be disappointed or dejected if you don't get those projects which you think are the most interesting things. You may get something which really is not appealing or interesting, but how do you build on that? Because unless you take that on and you're able to demonstrate to your mentor that you can do it with the passion that he or she is expecting, and that's when you can actually go back and ask for more work or to take on additional stuff. Yeah. An example.
Shall we come to this after we talk to Akshay?
Yeah, let's do that. I think after this, there's just one more slide, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah, and how to handle. So we'll come to this probably. So let's take a pause and let's come back to these.
We'll take a pause and ask Irina to jump in and, give her views on, the kind of attitudes and things that help, Like, I remember in your sessions with us, you had talked about how you had gone to a company and it was not a most sexy of the projects or the products. And, you still had to, you just went about it in a very matter of fact way. So, Irina, I will,
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so I was just listening through everything that Christopher was talking about, and I think everything is bang on. And as people are kind of going through this entire experience of learning as to how to engage and get themselves a lot more included in all the projects, there'll be various things coming across. The first things have gone remote, so the ability to be a part of something very intrinsic is, say, a digital away, basically. So it's one network away. But I must say that, first of all, let us all realize that it's a reality for every organization. But businesses for everybody is continuing. So you would have seen that all organizations are continuing on hiring by a very large amount. Technology is getting used to scale. So while things have got paused on certain fronts, nothing has stopped. Things have really got reprioritized. So that is one thing that you really need to remember, that we need to see that the organization is kind of really progressing with the same pace, but possibly with different priorities. Now, what is the best way for us to grab the opportunities and ensure that we are making the best of ourselves to ensure that the internship pays for us and pays for the organization? So a couple of things that I'd want you all to note, and Christopher mentioned some of these things here as well. So what's the project all about? And how do you look at it? So now the thing is that there is the scope of the project itself. The second is the people whom you connect during the scope of doing this project, during the tenure of doing this project. And third is how you show up. So when I say this, how are you showing up in, say, digital media, external social media, and what are you doing towards the deliverables of the project so that people know you about your capabilities and not just the outcomes of the project? So let me just cover these three things a little more. So when you think about your work, now the project, frankly, will not be, like it was talked about, the most mission critical one. It will be a supporting thing to certain streams which are happening possibly. It could be research oriented. It could be, say, figuring out certain set of things that need to happen, which is in the overall mission, various kinds. Having said that, I must say what every organization is looking at is, of course, the outcome, but the allied things around it is what you should really kind of think about. And the project is what you make out of it. So never kind of think that the deliverable of the project is limited by the scope in which you have defined it on day one, right? As you are going through the motion, you will figure out that there are A, B, C, D, E things which possibly weren't thought through, or you can add to it. So the project is a canvas, and how much you can paint on it is totally dependent on you. Because every project scope is, say, defined by an objective, a set of few details, and the outcomes. Now, what do you make out of that? That is something you should really put your mind into and be very flexible in that. Think that how can I enrich this? How can I ensure that the outcomes of this project become such that it really value adds to me as a person in terms of what I'm delivering, and to the organization, to the group, the leader, so that you are kind of bringing out the richest possible things. And always think that, I mean, a lot of times a certain set of unconventional things that you do in the overall way the project is defined can actually become very interesting, right? So think about those things as well. So in the scope of that, how you reach out to people, who are the people you reach out to? If the outcome says that these are set of things which have to be done, within the scope of those outcomes, are there certain other things that you kind of think can value add to the scope of your project? Can you make certain bold statements saying that this is what I did, and this is what the sample data, my interactions, my research shows, and hence these are certain things that I think we should be exploring, we should be checking. But before you make those bold statements, I think it has to be backed with a lot of data. So just remember something always, that it is not an intelligence, it is not a thought which will kind of take you there. It's that element of listening to people, working around with people, the research that you do, what you kind of find across is coming across by primary, secondary data. Everything backed by data information really counts. But if you're able to assimilate that and then represent what you're doing, that really stands out. So that's the first part about the work. The second thing is very important about the network that you create, right? A lot of times I've seen interns who kind of come and talk to me about the interaction that they had with their manager, or the interaction that they had with just 5 other people whom they were introduced to. And there are interns who kind of have showed me tabs and tabs of interactions, that they take one interaction as a segue of asking 2 more, and they will be kind of going across and asking more and more and more people. And that ways they are doing 2 things. First, the source of the information becomes so huge that they are able to kind of assimilate and aggregate a lot more things. The second is, it's not just your immediate team for which you're working, in which you should be thinking that, I mean, if they know me, can I have a chance for an IPO or a later engagement? There are many, many times that when we have looked at interns in the course of discussions, etc., we said, wow, that's a very bright conversation that we had. And at a later point of time, I mean, we will tell the business or HR that we will also be willing to kind of absorb the talent. So where did it come from? It came from the interactions that were kind of coming. And in the network, when you're doing that, reach out to different kinds of people. So there'll be people with whom you should be kind of in a mode to learn more. There should be few leaders whom you reach out to just say that what you did and what has been your experience. You might not be able to get time with a lot of them. If you are not able to get time, just drop a note saying that this is what I did, this is how I went to going about it. It's a way of establishing a rapport, communication, and whatever network you can do. Also, don't restrict your network, depending on the project, of course, to only the people who are internal to the organization. Say, for example, if there are people who've got some lateral experience, if for the scope of the project, you have an ability to reach out to your network, to people outside, and bring that knowledge to contribute, that really shows your creativity, your resourcefulness, and how you've kind of thought about enriching the scope of things. So external communication, external insights, market, etc., is always valued a lot. And again, I mean, if you're able to sprinkle that in the scope of whatever you're doing, that's very nice. So the core thing, remember that while you're having, say, a way of saying that this is the work that I'm doing, what are you building as a network should be another thing. You should actually be measuring yourself on the kind of network that you're building. And the third thing is, how much of digital skills and digital presence are you actually able to utilize and put across so that people know how you showed up. Now that's something which comes as a natural flair for a lot of people. For certain others it doesn't come naturally, and if it doesn't, it's something that you really need to build. So the thing that I would really say here is that keep in your mind that the frequency, what you say, how you say, also gets perceived when you're kind of putting things across in a social media. If you're doing a LinkedIn posts, it needn't be the best and the most classiest and the absolutely researched thing. Say, supposing you've got a 6-week project or an 8-week project. During the scope of that, I mean, if there are certain learnings that you're having, you might draw a parallel to certain things which are happening in certain other customers, or in certain other geographies, certain other technology, anywhere else, depending on your project. Put across your thoughts, right? It's a LinkedIn post is a very short one. 400 characters is all that it requires. But it just needs that you come out of thinking when and becoming a little more frequent, because people then see you as being somebody who has a point of view and is vocal about it, and that's also important, right? So that's one thing that I'd really say, that digital skills are really important. And when I say digital skills, how are you connecting to people? And it's not just a connection, beyond the connection, the engagement that you're able to do and make via the digital medium. So keep that in mind, because that will take you beyond the project as well. How are you kind of able to engage with thought leaders of the company that you've gone across to create bridges, maintain bridges? Those will be very important. Few other things also that I'd say which are important in the current situation is, earlier you would have had the ability to say meet people in the company, have say a tea, coffee, or a quick snack across, and have a little bit of a way to establish a rapport. Since that's not happening right now and people are very busy, you will be pinging lots of them, you'll be getting time from very few. But figure out what are the alternate ways of doing it, right? If there are, if the communication channel is via Teams, put in a Teams ping to say what you've done and ask for a meeting time, right? Even if you don't get a response a week or a fortnight later, give an incremental update. There are various things that companies are doing right now for, say, things around employee engagement, things related to COVID response, things related to mental wellness, various kinds of things. Put up your hand in areas which are close to your heart, and check out what are the various organizations doing in the COVID period in which you can contribute. Because then what happens is that you will have time at hand. So you, like I said, I mean, the project is what you make of it, and the engagement with the organization is how you are able to go across to many more people. So if you figure out these kind of projects, etc., you are building a larger network. So what happens is that when there's an evaluation happening for, say, a person, there'll be, say, 2-3 people saying that, yes, I interacted with her, I interacted with him in this particular project, etc. So that builds up a bigger voice of yours in whatever you're bringing together. So I would say that look at these particular set of things, and when you are kind of going through the duration of the project, keep some good milestones and checkpoints, right? And during the duration of the milestones and the checkpoints, what people really want to know that what is the freshness, what is the overall way that you as a personality is showing up, and what is the perspective that is, say, different in what you're bringing. So remember always that a project is a means for a lot of other things. Don't make the project the end. So that's how I would kind of give a quick overview. Back to you, Gayatri. And if there are any questions, feel free to post that across. Gayatri, if you're on mute, can't hear you.
There is one question which has come up before, which I thought was relevant. So you're talking about doing the midterm review. Of course, the company people will ask the interns, what are some of the questions that the interns can ask in the mid-review to find out how to do better and get an idea of how they are doing?
Yeah, so always ensure that, if the project is X number of weeks, I would say that if it is a 6 weeks, have an outcome for every week, right? What are you doing in every week and how are you kind of putting across a deliverable? And when you put across the outcomes also, don't limit it only to a deliverable of the project. Also say put across things that you would have done X amount of research, met Y number of people, integrated with Z number of project groups, etc., to do that, right? So when you're having a midterm discussion, present it by the overall journey that you've done, the process, the how, and the outcome, and if you've done anything more as well. Put everything together and then ask for a feedback that in these areas, how do you see me kind of doing? And what are the tweaks in those areas? So I would say that, focus on all these set of parameters which were written, stated, bring across things that you've added on top of it. And if you want to enlarge the scope of the project or put across a little tweak in the project based on your experience, call that out. And ask the person also, do you see this value adding to what you will be, what you were thinking as a project? Any course correction? And let that conversation be very frank and open.
There's another question, Irina, and I can resonate with this, because suppose you've got a project where there are concepts which you have not faced, and you're coming from XLRI, you're supposed to know all the concepts, but you don't understand some of the concepts. How do you handle that? It's an area which you're not very comfortable with, or they're using, suppose they say things like VUCA and all, when you don't know what a VUCA is. How do you handle such situations where you feel you're on the back foot?
Got it. So a couple of things. One is, in any organization that you're interning, if there's an alumni network who's already there, keep them always as a very, very close, immediate contact network that you can kind of rely on. That's one. And even before you kind of join or during the course, ensure that you're relying very heavily on them. Second, when you're starting the project, also ask your project manager about anybody who can mentor you beyond the manager, as say a person who's an individual contributor doing this, with whom you can go, to whom you can go with any of these sets of questions. That's the second. And the third, when you're having those initial conversations, try building up rapports with, say, 1 or 2 people with whom you can ask all these things across on Teams, pings, or anything else that can really be helpful. Some of the things that I've really found interesting, that when interns come across, they create a very quick Teams channel or any other chat group, etc., with the immediate alumni or alumni plus one kind of a thing. And it does help them in 2 areas. One is understanding the culture of the organization, what kind of goes on, and navigating situations such as this. So you might also have a situation that you've been given a project, you are just not able to progress, right? You've not been able to meet 4 people. You're not able to get the set of data that you were supposed to look into. And there could be various admin things itself. So for everything, you don't always need to go back to the leader, because the leader might not also be having time. So creating that group for yourself, along with, say, if there are 2 people going across to a particular company, then you're creating that smaller channel in which you all can look at as a support group to help you all. Because believe me, every senior of yours will be invested in making you successful. But if you don't reach out, nobody has the time. So, but if you reach out, everybody will be invested.
Thanks a lot, Irina. I just wanted to take a time check. Okay, I'm going to ask Akshay to speak, but can you hang on for a little longer than 5 o'clock for questions if they're there? If you have a hard stop, I will ask them to ask the questions now.
Actually, I need to leave at 6, Gayatri. So, okay. As long as Akshay finishes and I'm able to leave at 6, that should be fine.
Yeah, okay. We'll ask Akshay. He's going to speak for at least maybe 10 minutes. So Akshay, and of course we want Akshay also to stay on. So Akshay? Okay. And in case there are questions and you have to leave at 6, I will post them to you and we'll, get a reply for them offline. Okay.
Sure. Sure.
Oh, Akshay is unable to unmute. Leah, can you unmute Akshay?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, hi everyone.
Hi. So, hi Akshay. So, of course, you've been listening and I suppose you're resonating with some of the things which are said.
Yeah.
So, I want you to share your experience and I also want you to share some anecdotes from your internship, which are kind of high or low, because that will be really interesting.
Yeah, sure. So guys, just like Christopher and Irina have mentioned a lot of things in my internship. So when I started off, it was very difficult for what I'm supposed to do in the first week, right? And like Irina said, a lot of senior leaders, etc., will not give you a lot of time. So it becomes very critical to try to understand what the objective or the need of the organization is at that project, and your alums, your buddies will really help you in sort of giving you a perspective in those lines. And you need to think, and in week 1 try and give your guide and approach to what you are going to do in the next, say, coming 6 or 7 weeks. Okay, try and chalk out obviously things will keep changing as and when you do your project, your research, etc. You will realize that there are some other things that need to be done and some tweaks that need to be made, but you need to sort of initially go out with an outline and with an approach. Even if you don't get time from your mentors, it should be clear in your head that this is what I'm going to do, because you have limited time there, right? So that is how my internship started off. Very difficult to get time from the guide, the lead, to figure out what I'm exactly supposed to do and what is the organization's requirement at that point in time. So, for example, my project was on an internal merger. And if I look at it, most of the aspects had already been looked at, be it how they're going to pay both the organizations, the entire due diligence checklist. If you look at a merger, whatever is supposed to be done. And I think when the project was chalked out for me, these things were not done. But by the time I joined, these things had already been done, right? So nobody was able to give me what is exactly required of me. And which is where I sort of tried to understand what else can be done in this scenario and where are people facing a pain. So that is where it becomes important for you to connect with other people from the organization that might not directly be, say, your guide or your mentor, right? Or the senior leadership. Your alum network will help you there. Figure out what is it that employees are wanting out of this. What are the other areas which are in your project or related to your project where you can really work on. So that is there was this huge issue with respect to how the two companies were working, the softer aspects, the culture. And I tried and put it across to my guide and even the VP should look at. It seems to be a clear pain point. How can you approach this? So what kind of frameworks can you use? And use all this data that is available to you because of your area, whichever area you're working on, be it performance management or trying to get the strategy or anything, whichever project you're working on, there must have been people who would have worked in the past, be it your seniors, or in fact in your batch also there will be people with similar projects. So try and these people and use the data that they have already accumulated with other companies or through internet research, okay, papers. You guys have access to journal also, I believe, multiple online journals. So whatever data has been captured through these sources, use it for your project wherever it is. Okay, and after that, like Irina mentioned, it is very important when you're having every review. Okay, because you might not have a chance, especially it being virtual, to have a lot of reviews with your maybe your guide's boss, who will probably be in leadership, right? So they might just have one mid review with you or something like that. So it's very important for you to put down the process. So what is the process that you followed, why and how of you doing whatever you did, and the outcome, and basis that, what is your way forward, or what do you think should be done so that it benefits the company to the maximum extent possible, and which you time frame. So these are some of the very important things. And in my project, what also happened in this mid review, which actually ended up happening quite late, it wasn't really in the mid, a lot of things got added. So we realized that there is so much potential in terms of what we are doing, that a lot of work got added and a lot of new deliverables got added at that point in time, right? So it is very important to try and keep the leadership in loop. So like Irina mentioned, they don't have time to, and that they are the ones who are going to evaluate you at the end of the day, or their perspective is also important. Try mail or Teams note or something on what your progress has been so far, and try and keep it as visually appealing or easy to understand as possible, so that to go through it for say 5 minutes, couple of slides that you've made, they understand what is the approach, where you're going, what kind of data you've looked at, and what are the key outcomes that you've drawn, and what are you looking at in terms of a way forward. So that if they have like browse through what you're doing, they might be able to reply to you and add their inputs, so that it becomes easier and it's not a last minute burden for you to pick onto things. Other than that, yeah, like the most important thing in your internship is to not lose heart. Everybody mostly will reach a stage where you'll be very frustrated, you won't be getting time from your mentor, and especially it being virtual, you guys will be happening to me only. So don't worry, there'll be many people who will be happening too. Just try and be at it, and try and, no matter how much how difficult it is to get time from a mentor, etc., try and have a clear way forward in your mind. So with whatever, with say lesser guidance, so that is one of the important things that organizations also look at, that if you've been less guidance or minimal guidance, how did you navigate, and what are the things that you actually did. So try and have a clear cut approach in your mind based on whatever resources are available to you, and try and always put your thought process in any review, or it might so happen that you get a review towards the very end, and you've been trying to get time from a lot of stakeholders, but you're not able to. So that's okay, based on whichever stakeholders you're interacting with, based on the data that's available with you, based on the surveys that you've run. Okay, have a clear thought process, jot it out in whenever you have that review. They should be able to clearly see what was your thought process, did you do, and why did you do it. Okay, and there were other things which you wanted to do, but say these XYZ were the barriers, and sort of put it across. So yeah, so my internship was also pretty much on these lines. I faced all of these challenges, and that is how I tried and maneuvered around them. So yeah, yes, Gayatri.
Hi, Akshay. So of course you haven't given us any mazedar kissa of your internship, but I want you to tell us some nice tidbits about that. One thing, yeah. Before that, I have one question for you. So I have been also talking to recruiters, and I was also in the institute. So there is a tendency, at least in our time, and apparently even later, to choose a guide who is very lax in giving the grades. Not necessarily somebody who is really the best in that subject. So I don't know whether presently you have a choice of taking the faculty guide. So how did you choose your faculty guide?
So ideally, if you are talking to a faculty and seeking for help, it will most likely be which is related to your project. So for example, in my project, there were multiple things to be looked at when the two organizations were merging, right? And there were so many things to look at that I could only think of one professor, Bakchi, who could, like help me out with a project which had so many angles to look at from a HR or a strategic HR perspective. And faculty actually help a lot. So I remember that I needed Bakchi sir because there were some things which, in terms of concepts were noted there, and I wanted to start off from there. And I had not taken the textbook to, with myself, and I was in a place called Guntur. So there was no other XLR with me there. So I mailed, and immediately the very next day, he sent me like a scanned copy of his entire textbook. So it's like help you out. You just need to try and identify. If I told you, be in touch with seniors who've done similar projects. So if you're of say performance management or M&A, or there are some projects now which are a combination, try and talk to your seniors. They will be able to help you out in terms of which profs help them. Okay, so that is how professors. And generally, when you're starting off with something, to narrow your focus, or so that you have a focused approach towards things, a framework will always help. That is where professors will be able to help you, to say, give you some sort of a framework. Like say, for example, you're trying to gauge what change is required in organization's culture. So how do you look at a culture, organization culture objectively? Okay, so that is where probably professors, if you reach out to say Manish Singhal or any of these professors, OB professors, they will be able to give you an approach that you can use, where you can clearly show the organization that, okay, basis this survey or basis this framework, I'm going to look at it for so and so reasons. I've chosen this framework, or whatever, based on our context, and that is going to give you some tangible results. So statistics, sort of, rather than just informal interviews that you quote as anecdotes, which are good supporting arguments, but then at the end of the day, if you have some statistic or a framework that you worked on, push your idea across, right? So this framework, etc., you will be able to get from professors. So interacting with professors would be a good starting point. And which professor you should talk to, generally someone who's worked on that project or other kind of project before should be able to help you with that. Or you'll also know which professors are, right? So that is how you can look at the professor bit.
Okay, I'm going to just take a small rain check on the, the stories I want to hear from you.
Sure.
Irina has to go off in 5 minutes, but there's a question for you, Irina. And the question is that, that Aishwarya, I think, has written that she doesn't have any alumni in the company she's interning. And the company has visited the campus for the first time. So how does she use this alumni network? Because, she's a pioneer here.
So the other way of looking at it, that every year the companies go and hire people. So maybe get some people whom you can reach out to, and they will surely be able to help you because they've gone through the same boat. And that's also quite a vibrant network which is there.
No, but she says she's the first one to be taken.
Yeah. So I'm saying that Excel, she could be the first one. The previous year, any other organization.
Okay.
So campus hires. So campus hires will be there. So campus hires, the previous 2 batches, etc. It's a reasonably good community.
You're talking about other campuses also.
That's right.
So she's saying no campus hires as well. So maybe it's a startup.
Oh, okay. If it's I would just say that look at, say, some profiles of people who you think can possibly help you in your project. You might take a week's time just to kind of understand who can help you in these particular things, and then you might have to organically create that, in which case.
Yeah. The other question for you was that, so many things have been mentioned in this discussion, but how to decide on the priorities.
Yeah, so I would say that in your mind, you should just take it, say, one is break it down by saying that at the end of 6 weeks, what do I have to do? and hence work backwards towards saying that what do I have to deliver at the end of this week, right? And keep a very sharp focus on a weekly way of what are you incrementally doing, right? Because if you're not doing that, suddenly you will have a little bit of a void and things become a very large amorphous mass in terms of where you're going towards it. So keeping the small modular goals and also reporting out. So I remember once I had a coach whom I'd frankly not seen. She was sitting in the US, and she used to tell me, I used to have these coaching conversations with her once every fortnight. And she used to ask me that, what is it that you're intending to do in a fortnight? And also, what are the hows in terms of you'll be getting there? And what used to happen is that every time I used to review with her, she used to emphasize a lot more on the hows and not just on the what. Because if I've done the hows well, there'll be so many other things that I would have kind of accomplished on the way. Remember always that a project is just the means for a lot of other things that you have to do.
Thanks a lot, Irina. I think you have to, it's on the hours, so thanks a lot for your time.
Sure.
And Chris and Akshay, I hope you have a few more minutes. And I'll also check with Leah whether the students can stay for a few more minutes.
Sure. But before I leave, thank you very much, Gayatri, Christopher, and Akshay. It was really wonderful listening to all of you. And here's wishing really all the very best to all the students. While the times are different, it's the different for the organization that you're going across to. So everybody is in the same boat. So don't worry about that. Be bold, have the confidence, and reach out. Don't get fatigued because of non-communication. And it's upon you to make the best out of whatever you have. Okay? All the very best. Take care.
Thanks a lot. Akshay and Chris, do you have the time? 10 more minutes?
Yeah.
And Leah, how about the students?
Yeah,
I mean,
ma'am.
we should be customer centric, right? Okay. So Chris, just hold on for the last segment of wrapping up. So Akshay, tell us your story.
Yeah. So there was this one incident, right? So like I was saying, there were times when, I had to sort of go ahead and take some calls myself because time and I was not really getting a lot of time from the people, right? So I had written to I think someone in Deloitte. I don't remember the at that point in time, that because we are doing, say, an internal merger, etc., we sort of needed some insight into this kind of data. So if they'll be able to help us out, I had a brief discussion with my guide as to to reach out to consultants and see if they can help area. But after that, I was trying to get some time from him to sort of take him through my approach and which consultants I've identified, etc. I did not really get time from him, so I went ahead doing it. And Deloitte turned out to be our auditor. So generally we and I think there was it was not yet out as formal news per se at that point in time. So Deloitte sort of questioned our VP Finance that there is someone reaching out from your organization to us saying so and so, and it looks like probably they must have reached out to other firms also for their quotations, etc. And this is not news which is out, so how could have this happened, etc. And it sort of became an issue there. So he spoke to the VP HR, and then the VP HR sort of they didn't really they were not. In fact, they were like my mentor told everyone that he himself had asked me to sort of look, etc. And yeah, it got there are these few things which you have to be wary of. So it's always better to whatever you're doing, like I said, have an approach in your mind, but try and run it through your mentor before you can actually do something, unless because you never know where, like just taking quotations from consultants, I did not even think would be that big of a deal, but you never know where there might be some loophole. So yeah, so this was one of the things. There were a lot of other stories for me, but I was in a place where context was very important because it was like a merger, etc. And a huge part of my project was to do with the culture of the two organizations, so interacting with all these people was very important for me. And these people were, since it was a community which came from mostly Guntur and around. So building a rapport with those employees and understanding those things was slightly tricky. So I used to try and hang out with them at the factory, or when they used to go to the market and go with them. So I tried sort of hanging out with a lot of employees to get some time from them to get. So like I said, I used a formal framework this part of the project, but whatever came out as an insight from these frameworks, I wanted to see if it's actually true and get some anecdotes on it from employees. So that is where I did that. For you guys, since it's a virtual internship, you have to try and do some call with people from your organizations wherever required to build this informal connect, which you might not be able to build because you're not there. So that is I'd say another aspect. Yeah, Gayatri, so
thanks.
pretty
Yeah,
much.
so I'm going to ask Chris to wrap it up. So we have, I'm going to share screen again and ask Chris to wrap it up. Okay, this is not the slide. Yeah.
Sorry,
Chris?
I was on mute, sorry.
Yeah, okay.
So wrapping up today's session with an acronym, which probably is easy to recall and remember. And the acronym is CAN DO, right? So you heard of the CAN DO attitude. You probably have come across that, right? So the acronym is CAN DO, and let's look at what CAN DO is and try and wrap this up. So it's not necessarily in any order of preference, but the acronym fitted the theme and the topic that we're speaking about. So I thought, let's use something like this. So cultural fit is something that we've been speaking about. You need to be able to impress your mentor, your extended team, that you are somebody who they would want to work with, that they'd want to have on their team. And that comes across obviously with the kind of work and the networking that you're able to do. The A stands for application, which is talking about, like Akshay spoke about, the frameworks that you're using, right? How can you actually apply what you learned in the MBA to the kind of work that you are doing in the project? And how can you showcase that? I think that's what will earn you some additional credibility, right? The N, of course, stands for networking, and we've spoken lots about this, and it's come out as probably the central thing about what you need to kind of look at. And it's not just networking within the team that you are assigned to, it's also about networking within the organization, with other teams, with people from other companies who probably do similar work. And if you are able to demonstrate that and showcase that to your mentor and to the people who are reviewing you, that is an invaluable asset, because you can stand on your own 2 feet and you're not dependent on them. You're able to kind of gather information which adds value and insight. You're able to use those networks to, validate the information. And that is something that will actually impress your decision makers, right? The third party validation, which we speak about, when you bring across a variety of information saying, I've been able to speak to so many people, this is the kind of things that I've been able to gather, and based on that information, this is what I'm looking at, that networking part definitely adds, right? Then the D and O, the D stands for domain, of course, which is how quickly can you look at the information that you need to know about the business unit, about the project, about the company. Can you actually start engaging with the company? You don't have to wait till the day when they formally onboard you and as an intern, right? Given the fact that we are in a digital medium right now, you actually have the opportunity to connect with the HR of the team or the recruitment team and ask them to connect you with the business team so that you can start working with them early. And that also shows to the HR team that you're eager. It also definitely highlights to the people who you'll be working with that you do have an active interest and passion of taking this on. And it's not limited to the duration in which the internship is there. start 30 days, 60 days. I don't know how much time you have, but if you can start now, if you know the companies that you're going to be working in, the projects that are there, start working out, start reaching out, start building your information base on that. Second last thing that is there is with respect to ownership. And we've spoken quite a bit about this as well. Like Akshay and Irina also spoke about additional scope which may get added as you progress through your internship. And rather than saying that I'm going to typecast myself into this box and this is all that I'm going to do, can you take on all of that piece of work? Can you get that done? Very importantly, can you do this with as less guidance as possible? Because I spoke about also the fact that everybody's stressed and busy at work, right? So if you're going to be high maintenance, if you're going to be asking for a lot of time, they're not going to be able to give that time, unfortunately. Though the intent may be there, I think practically it's just not possible. So the more less maintenance that you are, the less guidance that you seek out from them, and use other channels, right? So not necessarily your mentors, but Irina was speaking about having a sounding board of people, maybe within the organization, outside the organization. There could be seniors, alumni, there could be other people that you're reaching out to, whoever that you're able to kind of build that and take that ownership. I think that will put you a long way ahead in terms of being a step up. The last thing, of course, is doesn't fit with the acronym of can do, but if I can call it can do's, right, is the stretch mentality which you need to kind of grow. And I think as XLers, you already have that, because there's no limited time for you to classes happen at any time of the day or evening. You are working through weekdays and weekends to make sure that your projects and other learning assignments are complete. So you're already halfway there, right? So don't typecast yourself there again, saying that I'll only work Monday to Friday, 9 to 6, because your mentors may not be able to give you time necessarily on all those days at all those time slots. So try and make sure that you're able to adjust and stretch. And again, the objective is not to come across as subservient or saying that, you can walk over me. That's definitely not the intent with which I was taking it through. But to say that if you're able to work with people in the times that they are available, that's going to be productive for you, and definitely going to also showcase to them that you understand their situation and their issues and you're able to work with them, right? So like Akshay was saying, you may have a lot of frustrations. People don't necessarily respond on time, but keep giving those updates, keep being persistent, keep having your 6-week plans, have weekly reviews as much as you can structure it. And that way, not just with your immediate mentor or with the team, but with the extended set of people that you can build this network and cultural fit that you're able to showcase, that will kind of place you a long way ahead. So thanks everybody for joining in and sticking on, though it's been a couple of minutes over schedule. It's a pleasure. And listening to Irina, Akshay, Gayatri, thanks so much. If you have questions that we have not answered, really sorry, but we'll try and answer them offline and respond to. Looking at the questions that you had asked, I think we've covered all of them. Any last questions from your side, Gayatri, that you wanted to kind of cover?
No, I don't. There was just one question which about priorities, which was addressed to Irina, and the person wanted it addressed to Akshay. Sure. So if you can just send the question through Leah, we'll send it to Akshay and put you in touch directly. And thanks a lot, and thanks to the Alcom, which has done all the work actually. Yeah. I just come and talk. They do all the work behind. And thanks Leah and the team. And thank you, Akshay. He's just compared to me and Chris, he's recently married, so it's not easy to get time to come on a Sunday from 5 to 6. So thanks a lot for that.
Thank you so much, Gayatri.
And thanks to all the students also. Pleasure being here, and thanks a lot.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you so much, Chris, Akshay, Irina, who's not on the call right now, for giving us your vital time when you all have such busy schedules, and making this such an insightful session and sharing with us your findings, experiences, suggestions, and the much needed stark reality. I think it will be really useful for students who are going into their first internships, that to a virtual one. And also thank you so much, Gayatri ma'am, for making these sessions possible. It's because of you that we are having these sessions, and it's so much useful for the students. Thank you.
You're welcome.